So I've played football pretty much my whole life. I started quite young playing for just a local team when I was like 5 years old because family sort of like same sort of age. Played in a team with my cousin with my uncle as the manager, and then just fell in love with it from there onwards really, and was lucky enough like to then progress to higher levels by getting scouted at a birthday party. And that then put me in a situation where I could trial for Carrow United, and I got into their academy, and it's sort of just gone upwards from there. So that then became Essex RTC, which I don't think is a thing anymore, but it was the most local academy for me, so that you're playing like Arsenal, Chelsea, like all like those sort of teams. But there wasn't really a local team attached to that for this area. And then ended up going to Spurs for their youth team, like under 16s, and I've been playing first team football ever since for the likes of Billericay, Harlow, Cambridge United, and now I'm signing for a Tier 3 team.
Very exciting times and a good journey through that. What academy was it you played for? Sorry, it just didn't come through.
So I started at Colchester United, and then that then turned into Essex Centre of Excellence, RTC.
Okay, and when it comes down to being in the academy environment, stepping out of grassroots, how different was that experience from you in terms of that transition?
I think because I was still quite young, in terms of coming up in an academy when you're young, they make you play all sorts of positions. Like we didn't actually have a goalkeeper at the time. It was you have to play every position, and like each week it would be a different area on the pitch that you'd sort of work on. You'd have to learn how, even though myself as a defender at the time, I'd have to learn how a striker would play. And I think that was actually quite key to developing more as a player, because I then know what other players like I expect of other players, and also know how to deal with that on like the return side when playing against someone.
And I think that's important, because that's something that I instill as a coach in terms of that key rotation around those different positions, because not only does it give you the game knowledge and game understanding where you're able to develop from playing in those positions, not only yourself but up against opposition, but I think it makes you more versatile as you get older as well, especially if you come back from injury, or if there's two players in the same position, and then you don't want to be limited for game time, so it allows the manager to move you, and then suddenly you make a better you play better in that position because of where the manager's moved you. Now, one of the best players that I have played with when I was younger, he was a winger striker. He'd score for fun when I played with him. And then by the time he got to 18, 19 and was in the academy, he was playing centre-back, right? And it's that mad transition between, well, actually, when he was in the academy, one of the academy managers wanted him to go and play left-back and from left wing. And he made a very good left-back. And then suddenly he got injured and there was a new left back that came in, so he moved into centre back and played quite well there, and that's the kind of position which he ended up playing now, still at this age, at the age of 28, and it's mad in terms of how you can move from such an attacking position to such a defensive position, right? And it's those different positions which you can play on the pitch. Now, what is the current position that you do play, and what's the most demanding thing about that role?
I'd say predominantly I'm more of a right back, or like a right centre back in a back three, and that's also because just coming back from injury, like I used to play on the wing as well, or play wing back in more of a three at the back than having the wing back. But since doing my ankle, I think being further back has definitely helped in terms of recovering, and I've also like pushed myself as well with, when originally like first sort of coming back early doors, playing more centrally to benefit with my recovery. So I'm forced to do more running playing centre mid than what I was playing like centre back, for example.
And so on the long-term outlook from that, then I know you mentioned recovering. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But do you see yourself remaining more defensive long-term as a result of this experience and being defensive?
Yeah, I reckon so. I think I'm definitely a defender that likes to offer an attacking outlet at times. I do like to, venture up the pitch sometimes. I can't help it. But no, I back myself as a defender, and I'm quite enjoying it at the moment there.
So, like Mikel Arteta put the centre back on a striker, right? It means that any of your managers can literally just chuck you on a striker at any point because you've got that attacking outlook. You might end up scoring a few goals throughout the season, be an impact sub at times, right?
Potentially, yeah.
But no, I think that different transition and playing those different positions has been key because, even just taking pressure off yourself in terms of that injury, and not doing as much running up the pitch and maybe being more commanded at the back and not covering as much of the space as needed and holding that line and reading the game to be ahead of your opponent plays a real benefit in terms of you coming back from injury. Is that something that you agree with or something that you found? Or
yeah, I think so. I think in terms of like my type of injury, coming back from it, it's a lot of turning your ankle and movements like that, and it took me a long time to sort of build that back up, and like the demand that football has on your body, and it's so much change of direction and turn, and that is key to any sort of position on the pitch, I think. But where I'm playing at the moment, I am progressing now and doing well, and I think as the season goes on, I'll definitely progress.
And I think it's looking at that progression over the course of the season and working out what works for you. Especially if you're looking over, say, this is a recovery year, and then stepping up that performance into 2026, and then looking beyond for 26-27 season. It gives you that sort of reflection and analysis of how you've performed, what you want to perform as, and how that looks in between your new team and playing in that tier 3 as well, which is a combination of a lot of factors coming into play this season for you, which is exciting and I suppose a bit nervous at the same time, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of emotions that come with coming back from injury. Like when you're initially injured and you can't play, it's quite tough to have to deal with because for a lot of people that play football, that is almost their escape from anything going on in their life. So to not have my escape when I'm feeling stressed or feeling anxious, any sort of negative emotion, I'll want to channel that into my football. And same with positive emotions, to be honest. And so then not have that, it's quite difficult. You don't have your support system as much, and when you're doing training from the side, even though you feel like you're starting to get back involved, but you're still not joining in with everyone, it does take a toll on you. So to now be, back in pre-season playing matches week in, week out, it's a really nice feeling.
Well, I'm glad that you're getting back into the swing of things and you talk about channeling those emotions. Now, would you say you're a really intense performer when it comes into driving yourself into that mindset, into training, into the matches across the course of the season?
Yeah, I think mindset is very key to playing well in football. I think if you're not playing with a smile on your face, you're not necessarily going to play well, in my opinion anyway. I find that when I'm enjoying myself, that's when I'm playing my best football.
And so do you push yourself and how do you hold yourself accountable in terms of not only achieving higher standards for yourself but pushing it for the players as well, because you want to be enjoying football, and sometimes if you don't see everyone pulling their weight in the team, and if a player hasn't tracked back and that's where your goals are coming from, and it's a bit sluggish in training, you've seen that consistently, you want to hold those players accountable because you want to turn up to enjoy it, and sometimes they can frustrate you and prevent you from enjoying it because you're having to do twice as much, or they're not taking it as seriously as you want to take it. Do you find that difficult to hold your other players accountable, or is that something that comes naturally to you? How do you do that?
I think it comes quite naturally to me, to be honest, because I think when playing football in college and stuff, I went to a boys' academy. So being one of, I think, 2 females pretty much training with men, like you do have to be held accountable if you mess up, and like vice versa. Like I would hold my hands up and say if I've made a mistake, like you have to react in football on the pitch, and if you don't have that reaction, I'd expect someone to have a go at me. And if I didn't, then that means that they don't necessarily care about me as a footballer. I think a team that has a go when someone's necessarily doing what they should be doing, they're doing it because they care and they want to do well. So it's only coming from a good place.
No, I like that perspective, especially from a player in terms of, that insight that you give there, because you want the other players to hold you accountable, because at the end of the day, if they're not holding you accountable, you're underperforming, and that doesn't become recognised by you, then suddenly it might take a manager just come in and go, actually, we want to replace Mayzee because we feel that she hasn't stepped up, and then you feel like, well, actually, my centre back here or player that I'm playing alongside with could have addressed that with me and said, look, I feel that you've underperformed here, perhaps you could do this, and then it becomes more of a team dynamic, and then you feel that support network create around you, as you said there, because sometimes sport can be a very individualized place to be, and sometimes, especially in that team environment, because everyone wants to go out and achieve their own things, but yet we are playing as a team. But sometimes it's about developing that trust, and sometimes trust can be hard to find within a sporting environment, and that can be sometimes lost over time depending on the personalities that way around.
Yeah, and I think if you surround yourself with people that are demanding of you, I think that also then makes others more demanding as well. I think having just one player demanding you to, perform better or do better, or even like when it comes to positive things like celebrating big wins, like a big tackle or winning a throw in, or like seeing it out for a goal kick, like just celebrating everything will help with everywhere on the pitch. I think, like mentality wise, if you've got someone encouraging, someone demanding, it's contagious and other people will then follow suit.
And I think that's the biggest thing which I've learned is whatever's remit around you is what you all take in. So it's what you say there is how you take that into your performance and channel it. Because if you've got that energy around you and you drive that and you take that and you drive that in to yourself and then others around you, they will thrive off that. Whereas if you go in preparing for a game and you're stressing out in the changing room, the other players around you will start to feel that as well.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying there in terms of that mindset and that psychological outlook, I think it's important to really take that away, because that environment can be so important. And even if it is just winning, you're 1-0 down, you're winning the corners, you're constantly pushing up the field, that will spur the team to pick up its intensity without having to be told to pick up the intensity.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's for me, I've coached a girl now. She's under 16s captain of the FAW national team, right? And she played for me in a boys squad. And she was by far our best player, right? Because she was relentless. And when she came to us, she was very raw. She'd go into tackles, and sometimes the opposition didn't like it. And that was down to us to coach her, because she wasn't coached to maybe our standards of the previous club that she came from. But we liked that rawness in her, because we didn't want to restrict her from going out tackling, pressing, pushing up high, trying to win the ball back, being motivated to do all these things. So it was down to me to manage her and coach her at the same time in a very particular way, because I wanted to keep her motivated. But again, she was by far the best player we had on the team, and we had a very good team. And I'm so pleased that she's gone on to achieve great things. But I think the benefit of her being the player she is today and being part of that squad was playing in that boys' environment and being in there where she was pushed to be a little bit more resilient, a little bit more gutsy, a little bit more this will be a bit of a volatile experience. And it was hard, because sometimes, you're playing a game, 6v6, 7v7, you're up to 12, 14 players on a pitch dependent. And part of that, she could be the only female on that pitch. So when she's looking around it, it can be sort of an isolating experience. Now, when you were growing up in boys football, did you find you were isolated any times because of those types of environments?
I mean, personally, I think when I was younger, before, like prior to playing in boys football, grassroots, there wasn't that, like we were all quite young, we all got on, like friends, family. So it was a really nice environment, and it helped me to progress to academy football. And then on the flip side, I think growing up in a boys' college academy sort of thing, so I couldn't play in the matches because I was too old at the time, sort of thing, and that's the FA rule. But I could still train. So going to train and stuff, I think there's very mixed opinions at first. You get the likes of boys that would take the mick out of someone if, like, I'll put someone on the floor, or a bit judgmental at first, but you sort of have to prove yourself and that I am good enough to be here. I'm good enough to be training with you all. And I was like taken in quite nicely towards like the end of it, but at the start, you do have to almost prove your worth.
And I think we were quite lucky because we had such a good team, such good personalities, and we were such a good group. And they all knew about her, where they played against her in different competitions, and knew she was a good player. So when she joined us, all the boys were really pleased. And the more that she got better over time, the more they were supportive of her and behind her. So sometimes if the opposition would come in hard on her, and there were a few moments I can recall, but the team would always rally around her and step up with her, and that's something which I really loved and captured that moment, because you want that team to be behind you, especially in those situations, regardless if it's a mixed team or if you're playing in boys football. Even now at your level, you want the girls to be around you and supportive of you if you get crunched in a tackle, or the pressure's on you, or there's the constant negativity surrounding you in a game where an opponent's trying to get into your head. You want the team around you in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think any sort of team, you've got to have that togetherness in order to succeed further down the line. It's all well and good winning a game of football, but to succeed in a league or in a cup competition, you've got to have that togetherness, and you've got to fight for each other, not just for yourselves.
I'm completely behind that. For me, if I was a manager and the first thing I was to do was to step into your team, was like, right, how is the team dynamic? What is the psychology here, and how are the relationships? Because as soon as we build on that, then we can put the tactical framework in place. And once we start to build on that, we'll build a successful team because of the togetherness. And I think that's the key thing behind any team which it leads to their success. But where you've been across the different teams, from a grassroots to academy to the regional centres to the league teams which you've been in, including Billericay, Carrow, Cambridge, and your new team now, what have you seen from any of your managers which has been a really good platform or a good tactic by them in terms of bringing a group together?
I think having that social side as well. I think you play football, we all play football for our own reason, but mostly because we enjoy it. We don't turn up because we do, sort of thing. We all turn up because we want to play. And so you've already got that common interest with everyone. But in all teams that I've played with, I'd like to think I've got on with every single person well, but it's what the manager instills is to make it a success, putting in that effort and having support, like staff that cares, not just about me as a player, but outside of football as well.
And no, I think that's important, especially outside of football, because as you say there, when you mentioned your injury, that's hard because you're training away from the team. You're not in that environment because you're injured, and you're focusing on yourself away from training, and you want to get back into that team. And the worst thing is, you get to see the team still progress and playing the league and against opposition, and it's great that they're playing. But the worst thing is seeing someone else playing your position, and the potential of the fact that you've got to recover, get back, and get that position. But then if the manager doesn't communicate with you and just drop you a text, hey Mayzee, how's it going this week? How are you feeling? Just little things like that, I think makes a big difference, especially for an injured player.
Yeah, 100%. And I was very, very lucky, to be honest, that I had such a great manager at the time last season going through all of it. I had constant check-ins with them. Even if I hadn't messaged them, sort of thing, I'd get a message, and when I was first back in training, I'd get voice messages saying, well done, you've come so far, and then progressing on to like first game back and such, like getting a message to say like you need to take a look at how well you've actually done to be in this situation right now. Having someone like that as a manager who helps. You wouldn't wish injury upon anyone, but if you was at an environment where you're not going to necessarily be appreciated, if you're injured, you're just going to be disregarded. There's not an environment
and you're in a position now where, you know, you've transferred from one team or moved out of one team into a new team for this season, right? So, you know, you've had this sort of injury period between both teams, and, you know, you've got a manager who was very supportive of you there, and you're going into a new manager who's going to put that belief into you and welcome you into the team and looks forward to the future ahead together. Now, is that sort of a strange period of being with a manager who was very supportive into going in to be with a new manager and looking at that sort of transition?
Yeah, so I mean, at Cambridge, at the end of the season, Darren, the manager, now no longer there. So I think a key factor as to me moving on, I wanted to then find an environment where I'm still going to have that sort of support. And although it's, you know, a different management team now, they have been so encouraging every season of me, and I'm enjoying every training session, every game, and I'm still in a very supportive environment, not just from the staff either, but from the players as well.
And I think that's important because there was a player which I knew, and she was only 21, 22, and I was coaching at the time, and she came in to be one of our coaches, and she had a big injury and struggled to come back to get into the game. And I think at the age of 24, then I helped her get into a team through a coach which I knew, and I went to support her in a few games and watch her, and just to give her that advice and that confidence back, because I think that's the biggest thing which was they struggled with, was they knew how much of a good player they were and at the peak of their time, and that injury really hampered them in terms of their technical ability and their physical and mental game as well, because they just couldn't physically do what they previously done. So therefore their technical game sort of changed, and they struggled with the confidence for that. And I think when they went back, it was just trying to give that confidence. All right, okay, you're not going to do that as quick as you once did, but perhaps we just need to read the game a little bit quicker, or just be able to take a little bit of pressure off, drop off, look to receive the ball and play it, so you don't find yourself in that different position. And unfortunately, it's sort of changing your game to be the opposite of what you want to be, because you want to be out and attacking, but for them they had to become a bit more of a defensive player, and I think they struggled with that because they missed being up the field and, you know, trying to score more goals. And it can be a hard period when you're sort of making that adjustment. But then, as you say there, and as you mentioned, playing centre back now, it's just about adapting that mindset and having that support network around you to have sort of your own support group who will cheer you on and be there, especially when you come off the pitch and you might feel frustrated.
Yeah, I think in terms of when you're coming back from a serious injury and being out long, you have to, it's hard, but you have to focus on the small wins. And rather than comparing back to before, because with my surgery and stuff, that is now my new normal. Like, I'm not going to have as much flexibility ankle, but that was the whole point of the surgery. So this is my new normal, and I've got to get to that. But celebrating small wins with, like, I don't know, you do something well, and it's something that, like, I don't know, even if it's just having quick feet, taking on a player, I managed to do it successfully. Something I take that as a little win. That is something that I hadn't done for a long time. I've been out for over a year, and I've now managed to do this. I think that's the biggest advice I think I can give on coming back from it. Just anything that you haven't done in a long time, take a small win, because looking back on things isn't going to necessarily help you and comparing to what you was to what you are now. You're going to then be too harsh on yourself and get almost in your head.
No, I agree. And that's something that I look for all the time as a coach and a teacher is, you know, what are the small wins? Well, what was successful today? Okay, you might have been frustrated with 90% of your day, and I'm speaking from a shooting perspective, but also a good 10% that you enjoyed. Right, let's focus on the 10%. Let's not worry about the other 90% so far. Let's try and increase that a little bit more tomorrow. And then we can take that into a new stride. And I think it's about looking at every new opportunity which comes, because if we spend so much time negatively reflecting on everything, then everything in our lives will just be a negative collection and not a great place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, it's important that we have, you know, those cheerleaders and people in there and away from football, because, you know, you might look at the captain, you might look at the manager, you might have the coaches and physios around you, but, you know, football moves on and sometimes teams move on, and at the end of the day you still have to, you know, look at yourself as a person. And away from sport, the same for me as a coach. You know, the team will always exist, but I won't always naturally be part of a team in the future, because, you know, life moves in different ways as we've experienced. But, you know, when you look at your sport networks away from sport, who is in your sport network, who is your cheerleaders?
I'd say all my family have supported me throughout progressing in football, like from when you're young and playing in academies. The demand that has my parents or any parent of a child coming through academies, the travelling to games, overnight stays, being a part of all of that before, like, I was driving and stuff when I was younger. They were there for every game, and they still are now. But having supportive parents is a big help coming through academies, because you can't make it to the games without them. End of. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their support. And then now, friends, family, my boyfriend, coming back from an injury, now I think they were the biggest factor into me still managing to be somewhat positive in a very negative situation, and putting it into a good situation. So whilst I was injured, I focused on doing something for myself, and that is getting all my personal training certificates. So whilst I was injured, I was doing the coursework, and when I recovered enough, did my practical and passed my PT. So I was able to take this negative situation of not being able to play football to now do something with the support of friends, family, partner, to now progress into a career that I will be able to stay in and around sport when sport leaves me, almost.
And I was going to say to you, I think that's the important thing, is not just looking at that, you know, sort of negative time where you're out injured. And, you know, as a young person, that can be hard because they can't see past a negative and going, well, actually, if I take this period and I channel it into something where I can find a benefit from it, then actually you're trying to find a value from that negative experience to benefit not only the short term but the long term gains as well. And I think that's something which some people struggle with, is planning for the long term, but then it's also that balance of going, right, I want to enjoy football here and now, I want to maximize it, but, you know, in a year's time, you know, if you were to get an unfortunate injury and it put you out, then you could just walk straight into PT and, as you say, stay in football. And, you know, there's options there, whether that be coaching or whether that be, you know, working in sport and fitness in any other environment. At least you've got the option there, because, you know, from an unfortunate situation where you could be, you know, the best PT in the game because you were out injured and you started younger and you've been in it around a long time. You know, it's sometimes there's a silver lining to some of our negative situations, but I think it's about maximizing on that opportunity whilst that negative situation still appears.
Yeah, definitely. And going through an experience like that really highlighted that that's now what I've decided I want to do. I want to be someone else's support network for being in and around sport, whether that's them wanting to get better, fitter, stronger to succeed in sport, or if that's them coming back from injury and they need some help. That I've got first-hand personal experience. I think that's going to really help in the fact that I have done all this training to now hopefully be able to be sort of someone that I would have been at the time. So it's definitely a silver lining, but I'm glad I've managed to flip it into something positive after going through all of that.
No, I'm glad too. And honestly, it's, you know, as you say there, it's about being that great teammate and being that support network, and, you know, not even being a teammate, but just generally good person as well, where you can see that in other people. But the benefit is, you know, now that you've gone into your new team, they know they're getting a good, you know, player around the changing room who will be part of that team and wants to be in that dynamic and will be supportive of the players. Where unfortunately, if it's unfortunate where when your teammates gets an injury, then you're going to understand what process they might be through, and just being there for them, even if it's on a video call or something, that will make the great difference not only to them as a person, which they'll remember, but then it also helps that team environment as well. And there's lots of different players which will be around lots of different dressing rooms, lots of different managers and different team environments. And it can be difficult when we move on from different teams and sometimes leave those good players behind. But when you transferred out of Billericay and Harlow and Cambridge to where you are now, did you find any of those periods difficult where you had to leave a club or chose to leave a club from the team you were with?
Yeah, so I think originally Billericay was my first ever experience in women's football. And this is when I was 16, 17 years old. I was very, very young, very fresh into women's football. And first of all, it's a big jump from, your academy youth development football to then playing women's first team. And this was in the Women's National League South East. So that's Tier 4 football at the time as well. I was more like of a player that would be put on from the bench sort of thing. Being quite young and inexperienced, I was that bench sort of rotation player, a player that they could still rely on and felt that they could trust. But for me, being that young, I wanted to progress and gain more experience, which is why I took it upon myself to go to Harlow, because it was still the same league, but I'm getting 90 minutes week in, week out as a 17-year-old, then turned 18, at the same level. And I think that was quite a valuable experience for me, because even though I'm only 22 now, I've had, 5 years Tier 4 experience, which is pretty good compared to a lot of people in this sort of period of time in their football journey. So I definitely think when you're young, the best thing you can do is just to play. And being on the bench at a team, it's a hard situation, and it's something that I loved the club and it was hard to leave, but you almost have to be selfish in that sort of situation to get better, because you're not going to get better if you're only getting 10 minutes or 20 minutes or even 5, like coming on like to waste time sort of thing. So for me, it was hard, but definitely helped me to then, go to Harlow and then go to Cambridge, and get even more experience.
And I think that's the important thing. And, sometimes it is hard to be selfish, especially, in a team sport. But, we only get one life, and we're only, 22, 21 once. And you want to maximize being of that age and playing, especially while you got that good fitness and you're motivated to play and you've got that opportunity to do so. Because as a manager and as a coach, we might be quite lucky to have 3, 4 very good players who can play in the same sort of positions and having that squad depth. But at the end of the day, if you're only limited to those minutes, then, that's a limitation to you. Whereas you want to maximize your minutes, and, it's paid off in terms of that move, because you're able to maximize those minutes. You gain more experience now at the age of 22. You've stepped up into Tier 3. You don't know what scouts are going to be around, what opportunities are going to arise from there. And then suddenly that might be your pathway to stepping up again next year. And it's those things which can be a real benefit, because it does unlock doors by just maybe taking a chance or something, or sometimes having to make that hard choice to move away from, okay, they might have been a good setup, might have been a good manager, might have been a good group of girls, but I'm going to have to make the tough choice to move on, to try something new, because I have to look at my own career, my own progress, and my own opportunities within that.
Yeah, definitely. With the way that things is going, because England women's, look at them, what they've done for the game. Their success has made it so, being Tier 3 now, you're one league away from being a fully professional league, and you're still actually at Tier 3 by other teams that are professional. So the fact that they're growing that much, even some Tier 4 teams now have started to do professional contracts. So the experience is definitely key at this age.
And knowing that you're literally a step away from being up there with that professional contract. Do you feel that pressure within you this year to push yourself further because you know you're almost in touching distance?
I think in terms of pressure, I'm more feeling excitement, and I think that's also down to the fact that I hadn't been playing for ages, and to have something like taken away from you that you enjoy is going to make you want to do it more. And now that I'm back, I'm just playing with a smile on my face, not putting any pressure on myself, because I just want to enjoy football and do what I love. And the fact that I've got an experience that I'm able to be at the level that I'm at in doing so and enjoy football is definitely something I'm very grateful for.
And especially at a young age, before life comes at you fast, and suddenly your relationships evolved, and then you buy a house, and or you move, and then you might have kids, and suddenly you don't have that time to play, or your motivation might be different, and and that can be a great thing, because there's so many amazing things about evolving that relationship, and then having a family environment and having kids, but also looking at the fact that, well, actually, again, looking at a selfish side, you want to enjoy playing and make the most of it, because it could open doors for you which you don't know there yet, and sometimes it's that crystal ball which you wish you had to sort of look into the future to see what would be happening and when, and it's also that unknown which can be a little bit difficult for us to manage as people away from sport within itself, but it's exciting times ahead, to get back playing, to have a new transfer, to have a new team, to have new players, new friendships, and to be in different environments, to be up against some of the different types of opposition which you will be playing against this year, which should be very exciting. And in terms of those different experiences and those different environments you've played in, what has been the best sort of atmosphere that you've been able to play within, or play against, or be at a different stadium which you've really enjoyed?
To be honest, I'm quite lucky. I've had lots of experiences where I've got to, go to some amazing facilities, and like, even though it's tier 4 that I was playing at, with Cambridge, you get to go to Carrow Road at Norwich and play at the men's first team stadium. That was incredible. Also QPR, their home ground, is it Loftus Road, I think?
Yeah.
That was another good one. When I was at Billericay, we had a pre-season friendly against Watford at Vicarage Road, and that was when we were in the Premier League at the time as well. So to say that I've played in the Premier League stadium is pretty crazy.
No, that is such a cool experience as well, and it's that thing as well where if you weren't playing, or you were stepped away from the sport, or you were out injured, for example, or you decided to take your career in a different way and just stop playing altogether, it's those moments which you would have missed out on, is playing at those different types of stadium, playing at a Premier League, and you're going to hold that with you for life. And I think that's pretty incredible, is those moments where you get to really hold close to you, which will last a lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. And now being at a tier 3 club as well, I think I'm looking forward to the experience of, away games and travelling far, like Plymouth Argyle, Gwalia, which is a Cardiff-based team. Where's another far one? Bournemouth. I'm looking forward to all of those, like even like the coach journeys, I think, and overnight stays really helps build nice. If you've got like a good group of girls that you really get, it can be like really nice experiences.
And it's just the little things, right? Which get me as a coach. You've turned up and you're at the hotel, and you've dropped all your bags in your room and whatever, and then you start to see some of the other players and coaches around the building and around the hotel on your way through, and then suddenly you got your tracksuits on and whatever. Then you're together as part of the team. You might do a bit of analysis, or you might just be preparing for a game. But it just adds to that atmosphere and that environment and that preparation and excitement, which it's just class up, behind the scenes of football. And then the next day you're at the ground playing, and it just makes the whole experience.
Yeah, definitely.
I was gonna actually ask you, in terms of what opposition would you be facing this year. In the back of my mind, so I'm not going to ask Mayzee in case it gives away who she might be signing for, right? But you've dropped a few names in there, and to be fair, some of the competition which you'll be playing against is going to be a real step in the right direction in terms of that experience, in terms of the pressure, in terms of those experiences. But where you mentioned Gwalia there, they're a team I'm well acquainted with because they're not far from me, and they actually play at a local stadium, and I'm quite lucky in terms of that because they are a good team and they pose a big threat, and they do have a really good social media as well. But some of the stuff which I've seen from their pre-season is they've been making some moves in the transfer market already, and it looks to be a good team which they're forming. And when you see opposition form good teams, as much as you might be a player like, oh, I've got to go up against them. That's the great thing because you might be in awe of this player because they're international experience or things like that, right? But then it's going, I am going to play against them and I'm going to prove I'm the better player than them, and it's channeling that into your performance.
Yeah, I think doing well and performing well is all how you perceive and look at things. If I, go into a game, oh gosh, I'm playing against someone that's played at international level, they're a really good player, or they've taken like the sign at this club, and I'm almost going to psych myself out rather than psych myself up. You almost want to be like, wow, what an experience to play like against someone so good. I want to show what I can do. I think that's how I'd look at things and end up well, because you don't want to psych yourself out before playing a game of football because you're not going to do well.
And I think you put that well there is, you don't want to psych yourself out, and you want to show what you've got to offer because, you might be stood there in awe of the opposition player and then suddenly, they've run past you and gone on and made an assist or something, right? But it's about going, I've got my own game. As much as they're a good player, I also am a good player and they've got to step up to me rather than you stepping up to them. I think that's just a little tweak in terms of, the mindset and that approach and preparation into games and how you look at the season as well, which is going to be beneficial for you but the entire team as well. And that comes into good management, comes into good coaching, and how you instill that in and across your team and across your players as well. But it's exciting because you get to be around different types of players who are of a good standard and who have played at national level, and that helps you become naturally a good player as well over the course of your games because there will be those tests where you've got to read them a little bit quicker, and your analysis from the first time, from playing them to the second time, it will all bring you together as a footballer, and any other footballer who is in this league might be stepping up first time in terms of their own growth, which is really exciting to be part of rather than seeing it as a challenge and a potential barrier.
Yeah, I think any challenge is a chance to get better and improve as a player. I think even if you don't necessarily have a good game, it's still a learning experience. I think that's how you take most tough moments in football. It's all a learning experience in order to get better. You're not going to get better as a player playing against players that are not at the same or at. And by challenging yourself and putting yourself in those tough situations, you're going to get better as a player. You're going to get stronger. You're going to be able to read the game better. You're going to learn.
Absolutely, I'm completely with you, and especially from a coaching perspective in terms of that. And you talked about those proud moments and those great atmospheres at those stadiums and being within those teams. But is there a particular moment which you'd be most proud of on the pitch in your career so far?
I think in terms of being proud, like as a club rather than an individual moment, when being at Bridge, we managed to get to the Women's National League Plate final. And unfortunately, it was a week after I got injured that the final was being played. But as a club, that was a very, very proud moment. To be a part of a squad that made it that far. And as a Tier 4 club as well, playing against Tier 3 clubs and being a competition that you're playing teams that are at a level, making the final was definitely a proud as a squad. I think individually, to be honest, I think my proudest moment will probably be my first game, like being back from injury, which is like yet to happen. I've only played with my local team to build minutes and to play for fun, because I think that was the most important thing for me first coming back, not putting any pressure, playing for fun. So, playing with my friends locally was my priority and what I wanted to do at the time. So my moment's probably yet to come with my first game coming up this season.
All exciting times ahead, honestly, and it's about keeping that building, because you talk about making that journey to get into the cup final. You look at that, recovery from injury. You look at the transfers between the teams. You talk about enjoyment and returning from there. You talk about the regional squads playing in academies, and already at the age of 22, when you piece that together, you've got an array of experience which is going to hold you in good stead in football, but also in life as well. From going into doing your PT qualifications and opening up doors long term. Already at the age of 22, you've got a great opportunity to build upon what you've got already. But again, you're still so young when we look at the reflection of things, of actually what is to come at 23, 24, 25, and so on. And it seems a very exciting road ahead of you. And it's going to be great to hopefully talk about that as your career progresses, and get to talk about those further and newest experiences, and see how the answers to some of these questions will change. And I think that'll be interesting, but I'm really excited for you at the same time, especially as you talk about your career more and the future that's coming. I think it's going to be a good season ahead. But we touched upon your proudest moments there, both as a team and as an individual. And it was tough for you to have that injury and not to play in that final. And you look at recovery and all about enjoyment. But if you look at the teams that you played against previously, has there been who has been the toughest opponent that you've played against?
Oh, gosh, I might be stumped here. To be honest, I think every sort of opposition that you play at this level now is a tough experience, whether you win the game or lose the game. I haven't necessarily had like a standout moment where we've got lucky with FA Cup draws or such to end up playing your championship teams or your WSL teams, but to be able to play against teams still at this level, every sort of experience is quite tough. And I've been quite lucky to even have teammates that have played at international level, and I had one teammate at Cambridge that was at Arsenal, Man City, Spurs, to be able to play with or against players that have already made it, and to have that sort of experience and knowledge, and to be able to learn from that as well, I think is definitely valuable experiences to have.
And again, it's that positive outlook towards having those experiences and those teammates, and being part of that football journey, which is going to help you in the long term as well, which is going to be a real benefit as well as to that short term. But just focusing just a little bit on your injury here, and I know we've spoken about it and you've talked about it, but what led to the injury? Where did that happen? How did it happen? What came about of that?
So it was just one of those freak accidents. It was in training, it wasn't even in a game. It was just a session on working on defending from crosses, and me as a full, I've gone to block a cross. So my left foot out to block the cross. The ball hit my foot, and fortunately, my ankle dislocated and tore two of my ligaments fully, and required me to have surgery after back into play.
It's mad, isn't it? How you go into a normal training session expecting just to train, and then it's put you out for a year, and everything which rolls life into that from just one little movement in a training session.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy to think about, and almost scary as well. The fact, just from turning up to training, you can have such a horror injury occur. As that moment I won't forget, for not very nice reasons, having to, sit on the floor holding your ankle, waiting for an ambulance. But I think being at the team that I was at as well, like I had everyone around helping, you know, supporting me. I had people covering me, making sure I was staying warm, and trying to be as supportive as possible in such a hard time was definitely something that I'm quite grateful for, that I was in an environment where I had the people that knew what to do in that situation, and also just people to also be able to help and support and just be there was enough to be really thankful for.
And I think that's important because that experience could have gone one or two ways, where you've been out injured, and the people who might not have supported you or been around you, and you always look back, at the age of 25, 26, and go, well, actually they weren't supportive of me, they weren't around me. But the good thing is that they were, and they rallied around you, and they were there in an instant. And I think that again, that makes that big difference, because there's nothing worse than being injured for the first time, or feeling something which you've never felt before, and you don't know what's going to come with that. At that moment in training, you've gone down, but you don't know a year was going to follow, because you don't know what type of injury it was going to be, and all of these things which can play in to the different types of injuries. But it was good that they're there, and it's reassuring to hear that, because again, we can be in such a selfish environment, but it's good that you had those teammates around you to be around you, which has been important. But it's good that you've got this recovery, and you've been playing pre-season, and you got your first games up and coming. When is your first league game for this coming season?
Oh, we've got a lot. We've got a pre-season fixture this Sunday and also midweek, and then it's literally next Sunday, first game of the season. So,
Very, very exciting.
yeah, and it's an away one as well, away fixture. So that'll be.
Oh, that'd be cool. If your first game away from home, traveling with the squad, I think that's an exciting time ahead. And for the season ahead, knowing that you've moved, have you set yourself sort of any goals or challenges for the year ahead, or is it just taking the year to enjoy football and not putting that on yourself?
I think personally for me, there's always going to be. I think when I go into a game, I will have personal challenges to do, whether it's making sure that I'm not getting beat too much. Like, it's football, you're going to get dribbled past once or twice, maybe even more than that. But having individual goals to either be defensively strong one game, or it might be that I have a goal that I want to put in a certain amount of crosses, or just taking each game as it is, rather than having an overall goal for the season. I think my overall goal is to just not put any pressure on myself, like you say, and enjoy football, because that's when I play my best, when I'm enjoying it. And to take this season as my comeback season and sort of really own that. And it can only really get better for me, I think. So just having that sort of positive mindset and positive outlook, that just take each game as it is, be grateful that I'm playing at such a high level, and just enjoy every tough experience as well that this season will bring. And I know full well that this season is going to make me a better footballer. So I'm looking forward to it.
A very exciting time ahead. I know I kept saying it, but if, as you say, if it makes you into a better footballer, and you've got things to look forward to, and you look at those personal challenges, and how you set yourself up, and look at the year that's just gone by, then it's about taking that right. That year was out injured. This year's about doing this, and experiencing at this level, playing against this type of opposition, and I think it's going to be a good opportunity to really take that forward, and I hope that you do well. How many games are up for grab this year?
Oh, off the top of my head, I'm not actually sure. It's Women's National League South. That's I should really know off the top of my head, to be honest. But no, I can't tell you how many teams there are.
No, that was just simply out of interest, as you were talking there about some of the opposition and things, and I was like, oh, and looking forward to the season ahead. I was like, oh, I wonder how many games are they going to play, because
as well, it depends on like how well you do on any sort of. So on top of the league, you've got FA Cup, you've got the Women's National League Plate and Cup as well, which is being run differently this year. I think before there was like a prelim sort of round which would determine what you'd go into. So you just play one game, lose the game, you win that game, you win the cup. But this season, they've adopted more of a group stage sort of outlet, and as of last season, in that they added like your WSL academies into that. So it's quite a big cup competition, I guess, and it's now got more games because of the group stages. So there'll be quite a few fixtures.
And I think that's good because, in the women's game, when I look at some of, the games which women players have played, like Mia Hamm, for example, I think she's got like something like ridiculous, over 300 caps for the national US team. And then I look at the amount of professional games which she played, and it's only like 96 or something. I'm like, how has she got 3 times the amount of caps compared to league games which she played? And yes, I take in consideration she played in like 90s and whatever, and women's football was very different to where it is now. But for me, it's still the same place where you get to see, some of the team. Like I'm a Chelsea supporter. I support the Chelsea women's team, and they are a very decent team to watch, right? But you look at some of the games, and some of the girls are only playing like 26 games a year. And I'm like, well, blokes play up to 50 games a year. And I'm like, I want to see the girls' teams a little bit more. I want to see this Chelsea team. And especially when you've got players in their peak, you want to be seeing them a little bit more, because otherwise they're not maximising the amount of games which are available. So have you ever, and do you keep a log of every game that you've played in your career so far?
No, I haven't got a personal log, to be honest, just more memories of games. You get like, if you have a good moment, you score a goal or an assist, or you make a good tackle. I've got plenty of videos on my phone, and that's what I sort of almost look back on and remember more than like the stats itself, I think.
No, it's not. No, just out of curiosity, as someone into stats myself, and teaches maths most of the time, right? Looking at numbers is something which is always in front of me, to be fair. But one more question for you before we move into quick fire, if that's okay, Mayzee. And you might not even think about this now, because you might just be taking things in your stride. But where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what is your ultimate goal that you want to achieve in football, regardless of any level you're playing at?
Gosh, 10 years. I'd like to think that I will have quite a few years at this tier. And I mean, my aim since being young, like you get asked in school, what do you want to do? And I'd always say a footballer. That's been my answer as to what I want to do. I didn't know where to go from there. Then I want to do football for the rest of my life. And the fact that I'm now, starting to move a career that's more in and around sport, where I can also stay in football. I'm not playing in it's a thing that I see myself being hopefully quite successful in 10 years' time, and build a foundation to help young players and more go into getting my coaching badges wise, and also then using the PT knowledge as well, and having my own sort of business to help others that have been in a situation, because I know in 10 years' time that the game's only going to be bigger. It's getting bigger every year now. I think like this year, for example, I know that the WSL leagues are expanding, so the whole relegation promotion system in below, so it affects tier 3 as well, is changing. They want the game to, like, they want more games, they want the games to grow, and because at a high level now, England women are performing. So I think in 10 years, and the game is going to be very big, and I'm hoping to still be a part of it.
I hope so, and I think it's as the game grows, and at this time you're in a pivotal position to grow with it as well, because of the opportunities which arise in teams and the potential of further cups and competitions growing. It's honestly a great time to be part of it and not be part of it.
Yeah, I think as well, like growing up, I know that the only option to make it in football was playing in America when I was younger. And then obviously now, as the games progress, like you don't have to go to America to make it. Still very, very good, and their facilities are great. It's not something I personally opted for, but it's what quite a few people still do. And the fact that you don't have to do that now to make it to a professional level, and the fact that the game in England has grown so much to the point, you can play in the academy all the way up to first team, and England ways, and the pathways are growing and expanding, and there's so many more different routes now as to how you can make it football, and even like playing abroad and stuff. Seeing players, even in men's game, it used to be quite a lot of homegrown, but now in the women's game, there's the options to go and play at an elite level abroad as home.
No, I think it's great to see it grow. And as you say there, and I speak to a lot of American coaches and I get to see a lot of their side of the game. And I'm in awe of what they do in their high school and college football. And I think that's something that we should start adopting over here, because when you look at some of their 16, 17-year-olds and they talk about some of their case studies, and you look at some of them who have played like 50-odd games already, and then you look at some of the accolades in high school and records which they hold and how they promote themselves and look at showcase talent days. I think there's a lot which we should capture to help build the profile of our game over here and take it to the next level and really help it grow. But it's the most amazing thing is that our game is growing and we're in a really good place for taking that forward. And I say you're in England, I'm in Wales, and our game is slightly different, but generally across we're both in the same place where the game here in Wales is growing regardless at all levels, and the women's leagues are growing in England, which is very exciting, especially as someone who's a big supporter of women's football. And hopefully when you get down to Gwalia, I can come down and support the opposition against you in that game. No, I'm only joking, right, Mayzee? I'll support you, right? But if you get down, I'll definitely come down and watch a game. But it's been fantastic to have explored your journey with you and to sort of feel part of what's to come for the future, and to share your story so far. And before we finish up, Maze, it'd be okay if we do some quick fire questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Amazing. So what is your favorite food?
Favorite food in terms of like a dinner? No.
Anything that you like, honestly.
In particular, I'm really into it at the moment. It sounds really healthy. My go-to snack is some cucumber.
Cucumber.
Yeah.
Nice. It's supposed to be good for you, cucumber, in terms of just when people eat cucumber sandwiches, that's always been a strange query of mine.
No, I wouldn't go for just cucumber. It has to be with something. I wouldn't eat just cucumber on its own. I have some sort of like ham and cucumber in a sandwich first.
Favorite film?
Bend It Like Beckham.
Good choice. Looking forward to Bend It Like Beckham too.
Yeah, the sequel. I was very shocked and surprised to hear about that's actually something that's in the works.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Favorite TV show?
Friends. It's a classic, but definitely favorite.
Like that. Favorite place to go in the world?
Ooh. Favorite place I've been so far in terms of abroad has definitely been Rome.
Very nice. Somewhere I'd love to get out to. I know my parents have been a few times, but that's on my destination to get to. Do you have any superstitions?
In terms of pre-positions, to be honest, it's more just like doing things repetitively. So doing like having the same meal, doing like listening to music, doing the same warm-up. I think repetition for me is more what I do in the build-up. I don't have like my left sock on before my right or anything like that. That for me is as far as I've got.
If you could play for any manager, who would it be?
Emma Hayes in the women's game. I think what she's done at Chelsea was incredible, and I really rate her very highly as the women's
Quality
game.
manager.
Yeah.
If you could play for any team in the world, who would it be?
I think personally for me, just because I've grown up supporting Spurs all my life, partly because my dad's a fan, and then playing for, I think if I could play for, it would have to be the team I support, which is Spurs.
That's a shame. Chelsea was a good choice. I was gutted when Bethany England signed for Spurs from Chelsea. I liked Bethany, good player, and they seem to be out. They have a good squad together, Spurs women's, and I think they'll be doing well this season.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've gone, when I was there in the youth teams, they were WSL, and this is at a point where the WSL was like the women's championship wasn't even professional. I think the only professional team in that league that season was Manchester United, and they won the league so heavily. It made such a difference. But the fact that now even like the women's championship tier 2 is all professional, it just goes to show it's pretty crazy how much the game's grown. And now, they're quite to win the WSL, so it's really
Absolutely. If you were to prefer to win a competition between the World Cup or the Champions League, which one would you prefer?
World Cup. The World Cup. Something the women have.
If you could play alongside any player, who would it be?
Lucy Bronze. It was someone that I have idolised from a very young age, and she's still smashing it now. And just like her character. So I mean, playing in the women's Euros with a fractured leg and not telling anyone other than the staff and the players knowing, that's just, I mean, just goes to show the character and the desire that she has as a player, and it's something I definitely look up to.
She's had a class career as well when you look at the team she's played for and the caps that she's earned.
Yeah, very.
Now, you've played at some pretty cool stadiums, but you got the choice to play at any stadium in the world. What stadium would it be?
Wembley. Definitely Wembley. That's it should be a lot of news. It's definitely a class stadium and would provide an unforgettable experience if you manage.
If you could give one piece of advice to any young footballer, what would it be?
Just do what you do because you do it and because you love it. You play football because you love it. So just whether that takes you to a high level or not, just enjoy what you're doing and remember that you got into football for a reason. I think you see a lot of girls, especially when they hit like their teens, sort of fall out of with sport a bit more when they're sort of going from teens to adulthood. And I think now that the game's growing as well, hopefully that will happen less and less. But personally, for me, and going through school and stuff, you didn't have a girls' football team. So the fact that that's now more accessible and there's a lot more girls' teams, just do what you do because you enjoy it and you'll go far.
Great advice. Honestly, I completely agree. And I like the way that you piece that together. What 3 non-negotiables do you have in your life?
What, in terms of football or just in general?
It can be in life or football. It's up to you.
Surround yourself with people that you love because they'll support you no matter what. Having a great support base is definitely something that you need. Doing something because you enjoy doing it. If, for example, you have a job where you don't enjoy what you do, you're not necessarily going to enjoy life as much. I don't do what I do because of money. I do what I do because I enjoy it and it's worth more to me.
I love that.
And lastly, just I think not being too hard on yourself in any sort of situation.
No, I agree. I think we can be too hard on ourselves in life, and we can often forget life is there to enjoy, despite how hard the challenges can be that we face in life, right? And the last one for you, Mayzee, is what does reflection mean to you?
I think reflection, looking back on the past, but also trying to do that in a positive way. So you're not looking back and dwelling on anything. You're looking back at what I can do better. You're reflecting on a performance, for example, in football, and you take all the negative sort of things and you say, right, next game, I know I'm going to do. You reflect on the positives as well. I did that really well. Again. So, yeah, reflection is key. To be honest, not just in sports, but for personal growth.
What a fantastic way to enjoy to end what has been such an enjoyable episode and just over an hour spent with you this afternoon, which again I do appreciate it, especially on a Saturday afternoon, Mayzee. And it's been great to hear about your move from grassroots and playing under your uncle with your cousin to playing for Spurs, to playing for the regional centre, to playing your new tier 3 club this season, and the kind of stadiums which you played, that recovery from injury, the road ahead for you, and your outlook in terms of life and recovery, that resilience, that reflection which you take away, the perception, the mindset, and not overcycling yourself, looking at those little wins. There's been so much which I've taken away and really jotted down throughout this episode, because it's been great to have this time with you, and I really appreciate it.
I've really appreciated talking to you as well. It's been lovely, thank you. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share all these experiences. Anyone listening as well will to learn and gain something from that.
Well, I hope so. And again, honestly, I appreciate you and making it so easy to organise. And a big thank you from me, and good luck for the season ahead. And I look forward to seeing you down at Gwalia.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll see you there.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, Maze.
And you. See you later.
Bye.
But yeah, we try to be that group that can help be there for the players as a 3, because I think you mentioned earlier, you want to have different characters in the changing room. You want to have different personalities. You don't want the same kind of people, because you're not going to be able to move forward. If you've got 10 people and they all agree the same things, you're going to get to a point in time where actually you're going to become unstuck. You need that one person to actually be like, nah, I don't agree with that. Or actually, we should try this. And I think that's why the huddle works, is we're all quite different as human beings. And I think you need 3 different people in there, because some players will naturally gravitate towards me and my personality, but equally some might go to the other 2, and that's absolutely fine.